Welcome to another episode of The Learning Equation. I'm your host, Danelle Almaraz. As the Chief Impact Officer at Innovate Ed, I stumble upon gems that need to be recognized, people and innovators that are pushing our thinking on what is possible in education. Today, I'm so excited to have Dr. Zandra Jo Galván here from Salinas Union High School District. Oh my gosh, Zandra, I am just giddy with excitement to dig into some of these topics. Such a fan of all the work you do. And we have just common love for our Dodgers, our family, education. So start off by kind of sharing your journey, starting as an elementary teacher to becoming superintendent. What was that journey like?
Thank you. First of all, just thanks for, wanting to take the time to have a conversation with me about this work. It's so important about sharing our journeys and just inspiring others in a small way or a big way to do some really great things that match with their passion and their purpose on this planet. And so just really honored to be able to be in this space with you, Danelle. I've known you for a little bit too, and I love how you lead just as much. So going to your question about, what started it and what launched it all, I think we all have big brothers and sisters that, we watch when we're little and we think like, wow, I want to be just like them when I grow up, and whatever they're going to do, we're going to repeat it because we admire them so much. And so I think in our positionality, whatever that is, we look up to someone else and we always want to get better or mimic or emulate who they are. And so for me, it was my big sister. So my big sister, when I was a fifth grader on this elementary campus in my hometown of Greenfield, she became a kindergarten teacher. So it was her first year as a kindergarten teacher on the same campus. And she said, Zanny, they call me Zanny. They say, Zanny, come down, like on your lunch break, come and hang out with the little kids and like read them stories. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, of course. I'm the baby of six. She's the oldest of six. I'm the baby of six. There's four in the middle. And I said, absolutely. And so when I did that, I just fell in love with being with kids and being in front of them and making them laugh and reading to them and suspenseful moments, all that kind of stuff was just spoke to my heart. I said, wow, I could do this for a lifetime, And so that's where it all started as a fifth grader. But then as I evolved, and I was always super spunky and passionate and by design, a confident young girl because the five older ones, I'm the baby of six, the five older ones really raised me together with my mom and my dad because there's 9 years between me and them. So there's a lot to be said about the babies of families too. So any of our listeners, if they're babies, we are a little different. We're extra, rules are made for us. The older ones enforce them, figure this out. But I think also in that sense, they always spoke light into me and just said, whenever you go into spaces, command yourself, know who you are, never forget who you are, make sure that you don't let anybody put you down or try to throw you, in some space that will hurt you. And so in that confidence started developing. And then my mom and my dad also, my mom was a very light-skinned Latina. My dad, a very dark-skinned Latino in West Texas, some prejudice out there, back in the 60s. And so they moved out to California because they wanted their children to have a better life. So my mom always was also very spunky and super confident. And so I saw this woman when I was a little girl all the way up till she passed, just interacting with people magical. And she had a gift to be able to make people feel really good. Even if they were having a bad day, if we had 2 loaves of bread, she'd give them one. And, she'd save one for the 6 of us and my dad. So she was just a very giving. And so I saw that a lot too. And that to me was servant leadership and also very faith oriented leadership. We were First Southern Baptist from West Texas too. So I'm very proud of my Baptist, culture and religion because it also is very servant leadership. I saw her doing that, and so I was like, wow. And I grew up in the church. She was a Sunday school teacher. My sister was a Sunday school teacher. They were my teachers. And so not only were they teaching us about life, they were teaching us about how to be good people, So big sister teacher, very much inspirational. My mom, very much inspirational with faith and just being a servant leader. And so, and my, the 5 oldest ones really shaping me to who I am allowed me to know who I was at an early age. And so in 7th grade, I remember a teacher who I'm very fond of. He's a very nice man. He retired just before I became the superintendent. We always had a, funny relationship, and I'll say his name, Mr. Schmidt. He said to me, he goes, something funny in class. I was like, you know what, Mr. Schmidt, who's your boss? I'm a seventh grader, right? I'm only 12 years old, maybe 13. I said, who's your boss? He says, the principal. I said, no, higher than that. Who's there? Who's that boss? And the superintendent. Okay, no, higher than that. He's like, no, that's about as high as it goes unless you're like a board member. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna be that. I'm gonna be your superintendent. I'm gonna be your boss. And so super funny, but I was like, okay, so what does a superintendent do? So the seventh grade, I'm like, oh my God, they're like the boss of the whole place. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And so as a seventh grader, like that seed was already planted out of just a really good relationship with people. So that's a lot to unpack, but that is how I became kind of who I am, but always shaped by really good-hearted people that, saw something in me and gave me a chance.
Oh, such an inspiring story. So you kind of alluded to your leadership philosophy a little bit. Yeah. One of the mantras you have that I know you live wholeheartedly is all means all.
Yeah.
Right. Describe that a little bit to me. What do you mean by that? When you say that, what is going through your head? What does that look like?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking that question. And I think when you come to this positionality of a superintendent, you have to lead with purpose. And you have to make sure that what you do, you don't forsake any student or predetermine for them what their future may or may not be. And that's such a critical element, because once you lose sight of your purpose as a leader, you should not be a leader anymore. Because once it becomes about me and not the people that I serve, then that is a problem. And so for me, all means if a student, is in need of whatever that is, I'm going to provide for it. Oftentimes, students don't even know what is available to them as opportunities. And so all means all, if I'm going to do something at one school, I'm going to do it at all the schools. If I'm going to give something to one child, I'm going to give it to all the children. But in that sense, I may go more with certain children, but I'm going to give everyone the minimum. For example, in my previous district and now in this district, innovation and technology is very, very important. If students do not have access to be able to tinker and play and decide for them what their passions are, a career inventory that tells them, oh my God, like I didn't know I was into computer science. What are the jobs with that? And what are the classes and the courses I can take in middle and high school to be able to prepare me for that? So computer science, robotics, innovation, competitions for inspiration, robotics, science and technology, some of the partnerships that I get to continue to have with Apple and with Microsoft and with Google is so critical to their success. So when I say all means all, it means opportunity for every single student in the district by design, not by accident, but by design. And so every space, every training, every piece of equipment that we buy, we are not going to have it only for one school. It's going to be spread throughout. To make sure that how we use our money is providing those opportunities, because we never know. You never know when something's going to spark or a kid's going to spark with something that they didn't even know existed as a profession. I didn't know. Like I became a teacher because my sister was a teacher and I was going to do anything. If she wanted to be a doctor, I would have been a doctor today. If she wanted to be a lawyer, I'd have been a lawyer today. So it's just whatever that first does. And if you don't have a first, then you need to provide the opportunities in school. So all means all, being very, very, very equity driven when we do things in our schools, but also highlighting equality, right? Yes, everyone gets a shoe. Everyone's going to get a shoe. But how big is the shoe? How small is the shoe? What size, what color it is, if it rolls, if it walks, is going to be yet to be determined based on their needs. And I say that because we're breaking kids free from the cycle of poverty across the nation. In my district today, 90% of my students are in poverty. 90%, guys, like 9 out of 10. If you lined up 10 of my kids, 9 of them are going to come from a home with a disadvantage. Not less love. Like every family loves their babies so much, whether they're a senior or a kindergartner or preschool, they all love them. But the difference is they don't necessarily have the economic means to help support their child by going to the Lego store and buying them a robotic Lego, right? Robotics. They can't do that. It's like $200. Like who's going to have that? If I have to pay for the food on the table or buy this Lego set, like no, but a parent will buy the Lego set because they're so afraid that their kid's going to not be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super critical. And the other reason All Means All is so important is because of where we live. Like we live in the Salinas Valley. Feeds the nation. We are heavy, heavy immigrants. We are heavy, heavy farm working community. We are heavy with, homes that may not have a huge library, nor will they have this or that that'll level up the playing field. And so all means, I don't want any of our students leaving this district at a disadvantage. If they go and apply at Google, I want them to be top level, top tier competitor with anyone else that would come from any affluent district, right? And so last thing I'll share with this question with the All Means All is I'm also a strategist. Mm-hmm. I'm kind. I love people. I'm going to do everything with a full heart, but I'm also a strategist, and who I meet and who I interact with is on purpose. It is on purpose. When I took our board to CSBA, the California School Board Association conference, we met some technology, huge heavy hitter tech companies that are right here. Silicon Valley is only 45 minutes from my district. So I know Google's there. I know Apple's there. I know Cisco's there. I know all these huge tech companies that my kids here could absolutely have a 6-figure salary out the gate if I, by design with my team, create these skills for them to be able to be top interviewees when they go into these companies, if that's what they so desire. And so very important is strategy when it comes to All Means All, making sure that who we meet and who I bring into the district has purpose and intention to help support the students that we serve. And so that's, again, a lot to unpack, but I think there's so many intricacies when people hear the word All Means All, oh, they're just going to give everything to everybody. No. They will get all the opportunities, but I will go deeper with some, less with some, depending on what their skill set is, what they need to go deeper with, what they already know. And we grow from where they are so that whatever their future is, they've chosen it because they've experienced something in our district that made them so excited about that chosen career.
I use the analogy of being the mother of 5. They're all going to get everything they need from me. But sometimes during breakups, during homework crisis, they need you more and the other kids are fine. So it's giving them what they need when they need it. That often helps people understand a little bit of, they're all going to have the basics, but sometimes they need you more during certain times in their life. That clarity of focus you have around the vision for the future. As a leader, how do you envision the future educational leadership evolving over the next decade? Because I know you're a googly person. I know you're currently using AI in your own workflow, probably. I'd love to hear about that. But how do you see the next decade as far as what you described of preparing these kids for a world that doesn't exist yet?
Yeah. Oh my God, that is a fabulous question. I love being an AI-empowered superintendent. I play with it all the time. I learn more. I do a lot on my own. I love to tinker. I do tinkle sometimes too when I have to go to the bathroom. But tinker, I always want to explore and get better. And I love to hang out with people that are smarter than me. I'm a smart cookie, but I love to hang out with people that are smarter than me. And I love to just ask them questions like, tell me about this, tell me about this, tell me about this. And so I'll tell you, the vision for the future is great. It's beautiful. It's something that is yet to be discovered. And I want to cultivate curiosity. That's what I want to do. As a leader, I want to cultivate curiosity. I don't want people to be scared. I don't want you to climb in a hole and think the robots are going to take over the earth. They're not, because there always needs to be somebody to program it, right? Teachers, don't get worried. They're not going to come and take over your classroom, but it is a tool to help us go smarter and deeper with next level depth of knowledge. And so here's what I am a superintendent who also lived for 10 years in the curriculum instruction and assessment world. And I love all things educational services. I love technology. I love innovation. I love playing. I love hands-on learning. That's how I learn. And so I really appreciate when I get to be in places and spaces with people who make me challenge my thinking, who make me be a better leader, and who make me think about what our kids are going to need in the next century, right? And so with that, I cultivate curiosity. I say, okay, hey, how about if we just wanted to practice with the tool? And here's with AI, right? Just AI in itself. Two things. Number one, how would you like it if you got the gift of time back? How about if you at nighttime could hang out with your family a little more? What about if you had a tool that could help support grading some of your written essays, secondary teachers that take you so long, and they can give you an analysis of the errors and what a student's syntax and what their complexity of sentences are that you can maybe give them feedback on, and then pull a small group together because they all have the same needs. Wouldn't that be fabulous? And you wouldn't have to be grading those papers all at night. That would be number one, the gift of time, right? And then number two, wouldn't you love to live in a world where every student has opportunity to advance in whatever that is? So how about leveling the playing field? So if you have districts with students at disadvantage that are maybe down here economically, AI, will get them to where next level is students in affluent districts, and it will surpass. Because not only do they have a depth of understanding of it, they have second language. So let's just talk about our kids who are multilingual learners who are now learning the language of code and the language of artificial intelligence, in addition to already knowing English, in addition to already knowing Spanish, in addition to already knowing French or Chinese or Italian. So now guess what? The brain is able to handle those levels of language at a whole nother level. So the vision for the future is evolving. Absolutely. The only way to stay in tune with that evolving future is to be in the work. Don't be afraid. Be in the work. In the work means this. In the work means getting on podcasts like this, with other like-minded leaders that are talking about AI. I had the good fortune at ASA to be on a few panels with other superintendents that were talking all about AI. And we went deep about cultivating curiosity, about the tools that we bring in, the trainings that we give for teachers, the things that we expose our students to, how we involve parents in academies so that they also understand and they don't, think that, misconceptions about what AI is. Because it's here to stay. Jobs, if we analyze the job market trends, right? The economic world trade, just what are the future jobs and what are the skills they're going to need is so critical. So then what do we need to do? We need to backwards map that. Backwards map it and say, okay, if I have a seventh grader who comes into my district, because again, my district is only seventh grade through 12th grade in adults. So if I have a student that comes into my district as a seventh grader, I've got them seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. I have them for 6 years with me before they graduate. How do I want to enrich their genius? Let's just talk about their genius for 6 years. What am I going to do as a seventh? What am I going to do as an eighth? What am I going to do as a ninth? How am I going to go deeper with their content so that their vision, whatever they want to be in the future, they're ready for it, right? So with that, again, I just culminated 100 days. And so I haven't been in this district very, very long, but those 100 days were so impactful. We've already built out and we're on the last final iteration of our portrait of a graduate. Portrait of a graduate. We're now going to convert that this next month in May into a strategic plan, coupled with my 100-day assessment and analysis of what we need to do, what we do well in this district and what we can do better. Absolutely. Game changing for the vision of the future. Because if the vision of the future is spaces that no longer have desks and rows, but have tables with whiteboards so they can work out their math problems, and that's what we need to provide for the kids. If they need an iPad and a Chromebook, then they need to go deeper with Android and different types of coding, then that's what we're going to provide them. So the vision of the future as it evolves and AI is here to stay, we need to, as leaders, be very mindful of how I'm learning so that I can then cultivate that curiosity within spaces here that then translates into students. And strategists, as I told you before, who I partner with and who I do work with is really, really important. And so got to partner with Google. I was the first inaugural Google fellowship with them, and my whole problem of practice, or they called it a transformational opportunity, was AI. And how do you create a task force in a district to just cultivate curiosity? And so I got to do that in my previous district. I'm getting ready to do that here in ours. We already have an AI task force that have been doing some really cool things. And so now I get to be their leader that says, okay, how do we go deeper? And how does your experience translate to a student experience in alignment with their future? And so that is how vision of the future will evolve right here in our district.
The fact that you have an AI task force, the two things that struck me were that profile of a graduate, right? Profile of a learner is really what helps drive your decisions.
Yeah.
Once you have that, that's the clarity of focus. Now we say yes and no to things based on, do they support what our vision together? Like that, it seems like ground zero to me everywhere. You first have to have a vision of where are we going? What is the plan? Might tweak along the way, but it gives us that platform or that floor to now make decisions. In the AI task force, this is something as I work with schools and districts that I often run into. There are so many AI tools. Mm-hmm. How do you choose? So districts are in this kind of space where, all the teachers like BRIS, some like Magic School AI, some want to go to portfolios like Spaces EDU or math to do Smart School to get timely specific feedback. How is that decision made? Is that something the task force works on? Do they try it first? What does that look like? And what advice would you give to other superintendents that are like, we don't know how to pick?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I would say 2 questions. Number 1, what does your product do? What solution does it provide? Is it going to make my kids smarter? Is it going to expose them to things that will challenge their thinking? I mentioned earlier DOK. So does it go deeper with content and not just superficial level of just level 1 of, tell me what's the capital of this, whatever. So that's the first question. And then number 2, how are you going to protect my students' data? Yeah. So what can it do? And then how is my data going to be protected? Because as we expose, ChatGPT is wonderful. I love it. I got the paid version. I talk about it a lot. I do a lot with it, but my data is not protected. So I don't ask it crazy questions. I ask it questions of really like what I need to know and what I need to have for the work I'm doing. But if my student did that and they're exposed, then that's a problem, right? So number 1, what does your product do? And how is it going to make my students cultivate the genius in my students? Why don't we say it that? What does it do? And how does it cultivate genius in my students? And number 2, how's it going to protect my students from harm? So if you think about curriculum, if you think about instruction, if you think about reality and virtual reality, augmented reality, can it get them into a space where they're actually now navigating Chichen Itza? Are they visiting Washington, D.C.? Are they underwater exploring, sea kelp forests? Like, what are they doing with that makes them better as a human? So now that experience they carry into that next level of their life. And then how are they protected? So when I talk about, any of the panels we're on and we talk about that, those are like 2 of the really big questions that I ask. And then so many partners out there, I really appreciate being in spaces where people are in product development, because when you're product development, they're just trying to find a solution and they want a superintendent, they want a teacher, they want a principal to say like, okay, give me feedback. Are we there yet? Okay, not yet. But if you did this, you're getting closer to what we need. And they're so open to that. Yeah. They're so open to that conversation. And so I also appreciate that, because then it allows them to grow as a company, but it also gives us a tool and a solution to what we need in our districts.
Good. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. You're right aligned. So thinking of that, how have you seen students? Because you have 7th through 12th grade, so they're the genie's out of the bottle. They're already exposed to AI everywhere they look. How are you already seeing it in the learning environments? Being careful of calling, saying kids are cheaters. We're both very big proponents of relationships with students. Nothing will break your relationship faster than to say, you cheated on this, right? And you didn't. And we know AI detectors don't work. They over analyze, and especially for English learners, right? Yeah. They over identify. And so what are you seeing in the environments and the learning spaces currently, how AI is being used?
Yeah. So as I told you, I've only been here 100 days, right? So here's the vision. And so the vision really, I'll share more about that because I haven't got a chance to now implement the 100-day assessment. In the assessment, there was lots of things that were uncovered and discovered of what we need to do more of. And one thing that we don't have systematically, organizationally implemented is AI in that way yet. And so I'll say this. We have a solid task force with brilliant minds that are playing around and sharing some things with others, but it's not systematic yet. So the systematic yet is calling a town hall, like on virtual, and just saying, okay, guys, here's what your superintendent knows about AI. Here's what I love. I want to cultivate curiosity. I need some players to help us on this journey.
Those early adopters, right?
Those early adopters, those curious minds, those that are already using it for good, right? They're already doing things that are making their life easier. And I really want to go with the same two kind of premise of number one, how do I give you the gift of time? Because there's so many people that have no idea what it can do. And there are others that are in this playground figuring out, wow, this is so cool. If you only knew what it could do for you, like you would just like flip. So I'm going to tell you a little quick story about the AI implementation. Guiding Coalition, we're building out our portrait of a graduate, and I have an audience of about 80 people. We've been meeting already for 5 times. We have 2 more meetings as we finalize our portrait and we turn it into our strategic plan for next year, rolling all that out. Well, I was going to be the moderator for a panel of a cross-section of leaders. So there's going to be some students on the panel because my Guiding Coalition has about 15 students, has about like 25 educators, community, industry partners, college and career representatives. We also have parents on there. We have teachers, we have counselors, admin, a whole big cross section. So it's like, it is the most diverse group that you would ever imagine, and then ethnically diverse too. So I have about 8 people that I called to be interviewed on stage. And it was, a teacher, an administrator, a couple students, a student from a continuation school, a student from a middle school, everyone in between, right? About 7 people. And then I said, okay, here's our topic. Our topic is, how has the Guiding Coalition really cultivated a portrait of a graduate, and what do we need to know more now that you've seen the 100-day, assessment on what I've discovered and where we want to go with strategic planning, and where we're going with the portrait of a graduate. I'm going to ask you some questions. So I turned to the audience, and I had about 8 up here. So I had about another like 70 something out in the audience. And I said, how many of you guys have dabbled and feel pretty confident in AI? Okay, this is a cross section of my district, a really great, Doppler stick into saying, okay, let's see what the temperature is. 7 people stood up. That's it. 7 people out of a room of like 80. I was like, okay, hold up, time out. I'm a teacher first, guys. I'm going to teach you something, because if you are not using AI yet, you're getting left behind. So let me tell you what I did. And so here's the story I told them. I said, you see these 7 people? And y'all know I have a family, and I love that you have families, and we want to make sure that when we are home, we give our love and our time to those that we love in our home. And so how about if I told you that I created the questions for this panel based on all that information in 5 minutes? How have I told you that? And they're like, what? What are you talking about? I said, let me take you on a walk. I'm going to do a little mini lesson, and then we're going to get into the question. But let me tell you what I did. I said, here's what I did. I got onto ChatGPT, and I paid for the $20 a month version because I just wanted it to be better. And so I went in there and I put in the 100-day strategic plan. I loaded up my resource. I loaded up our draft of a portrait of a graduate. I loaded up our Salinas, our vision and our mission. I loaded up the slide deck from all of our portrait of a graduate sessions to give her content. And I say her because, I'm a girl and she's smart. My cat is a girl. And then I asked her, and I just prompted her in the most deliberate, intentional way. I said, and I'm telling them all this. And I said, so here was my prompt. Prompting is the most critical component of getting a result, right? The most specific result to your task. And so I said, I am the superintendent of the Salinas Union High School District. I'm going to be moderating a cross-section panel of students, teachers, administrators, certificated staff, and classified staff. And I want you to analyze the 100-day assessment. I want you to analyze the draft of the portrait of a graduate. I want you to analyze these 2 or 3 slide decks. And I want you to analyze our core vision and our mission as a school district. And then I said, I'm going to be asking this panel some very important questions with relation to this as we move our work forward and what we need to do. I would like for you to create some very curious but deliberate questions related to the content that I've uploaded. And I want you to give me 7. And I want it to be I want you to cite the evidence of which document you drew that question from. And I want you to have an adult question and a student question. I said, generate that first iteration. And then I'm going to ask you another question if they're not good enough.
Yeah.
And she's all good about that because she knows I want it great. I don't want it good enough. And so boom, like it all spit out. Like, oh my God, she gave me the evidence. She gave me the 2 questions. She told me why that question was important. She told me what that question was going to gain from a result, what we were looking for, what we wanted to hear. And then I said, ooh, this is great, but I need 2 more questions on this. So then I analyzed what was missing. So I said, I need 2 more questions about X, whatever. So then she gives it to me again. So I'm telling this to this huge audience and they're like, what? What? So then after that, I showed them everything. I showed them the back end. I showed them in chat the first question. I showed them the second part. And then I showed them the questions that were generated. And then I told them this. I did it in 5 minutes. You know why? Because my family deserves their mom to be present at home. Wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want that? So I encourage you all to don't get the paid version first. Just get the regular version. Ask it questions like this and see what you get. And see if you give yourself the gift of time back and become more efficient as a leader so that you still get these really great questions and you're learning, but you're also balancing life. And they were like, whoa. Yeah.
And that you model differentiation right there at right on the spot to show them. And I think that that's a lot of what kids need as well. They need to see the relevance. Why is this important? So, and that you described how you did the prompting, right? And that you were still the human in the mix to say, oh, love all this, missing a couple here, right? That, and how important it is to be able, that skill of communication, clearly, concise. What are you trying to do? What's your scenario? I bet they were just all blown away.
Yeah, they were blown away. And I was like, and I'm your superintendent and I'm here, I can do mini lessons. I can do a class. If you want a series of workshops, I can jump on and show you how to be smart and give you that gift of time. But it's so critical to keep learning. My whole purpose was showing them was what an opportunity that I would have missed had I just gone into the questions and not told them how I generated the questions, right? Would have been a missed opportunity. I'll just tell you one more thing before we close out this question was I also build bots. So
Me
easy.
too.
So easy, right? And so people think oh my God, it's probably so hard. No, it's not even hard. All you're doing is crafting your container. That's all I'm doing. So what I just generated and explained, I could put that now as my ChatGPT when it comes to going deeper with portrait, because all I've done is given it all the resources and now it narrows the playing field, right? Yeah. And then now I can say, give me the themes. What were the most prevalent themes? Or what was this? And what was that? And then when I interview questions of students, I can upload their interviews there and say, here's what the students are saying about our portrait of a graduate. So once you craft your container and you build your bot to have the brain to narrow it here, that's not hard. But people get scared of that. Really scared.
Or they don't know what to create. So in Claude, I use Claude a lot, and you create a project. So it's very similar to creating your own chat, your own GPT is you're now, the way I describe it is you're putting a transparency down. Saying, here's what I want it to filter through before, because if you just put it straight into chat, it'll give you an answer. But what you want is, I want to give you this to be your brain. This is your project. And now I go back to those projects often and ask them questions, especially as I work with different districts. I've uploaded their LCAP. I've uploaded our Schools on the Move framework. And now I can ask questions based on that filter. That's so much better than just going in free and not having that guidance for it. I love that. I love that example. That is one of the things that I often am in awe of is your honest and sincere mentoring of others. So Sister Circle, and tell me a little bit about that. I follow, I watch, and just the support you give, the condolences when there's, our friend Heidi, her daddy just passed away. And so that to me is so important because these education is a marathon, not a sprint. And we're doing the best we can. So tell a little bit about that and how it started. And, what advice would you give to others that are lonely doing this very difficult job of finding your people to help you through those difficult times?
Yeah, what a great question. And so, I have several circles, but I'll talk with you a little bit about the original one, and then I'll go into how that's evolved. So way back during the pandemic, right? The pandemic hit and everyone went virtual, and we were learning about Zoom. We were learning about Google Meets and all those kinds of things. We were at a women's AXA conference. So the California Association of Superintendents and Administrators, we all got together for this convening, and it was a women in leadership convening, and it was online, and there was several of us. It was about May, I think, of 2021 after we went out, and we were in circles. And so one of the breakout sessions was, hey, let's put some sisters together and talk about how do we support and uplift each other. So one sister that I went to high school with was in the space, and she was already, she was the CEO of CUE, the California, educators of technology. And so she knew a few different people across the nation because she had dabbled in that work with, and led it with technology. And so her name's Pam. So Pam said, okay, she's in this space. She goes, I need to pull a sister group together. Like, this trainer challenged her and others to say, you're not alone. This pandemic is new. We need to figure this out. You're not alone. Everything's going to be different. Everyone's a first year teacher again. Everyone's a first year leader again. We have no idea what's going on. You need to lean in. You need to lean in on some sisters and really support each other. So she was the nucleus. Pam was the nucleus that then said, okay, I know 5 others that I really admire and I love, and I think they need to meet. They need to meet each other. So it's basically a text message that she generated and said, hey, Zandra, I would love for you to be in this circle. I think there's some women that you would love to meet. Please meet Rosa. Please meet Jessica. Please meet Veronica. Please meet Linmara. And so then we just started the chat like, oh, hi. Hi, Rosa, what do you do? Hey, Linmara, what do you do? And it was all text. It was just text. That was it. And then we started to get to know each other. And one of our sisters, I love her, Rosa, she's like, oh, no. I Googled all of you. I made sure I did background checks on you to make sure you were legit, because I can't just mess with anybody, And then other ones were like, all right, we're just going to lean in. We're just going to be like, be with sisterhood and forget it. We never even met in person till like a year and a half, 2 years into this friendship. But then what it evolved to, and why I encourage everyone to be the nucleus that starts a circle, is because one of our sisters, Rosa, said, this is the circle of sisters that I never knew I needed. She says, I never knew I needed this until I found it. And now it transformed. So fast forward to 2025. We've been sisters for 4 years now. We've had people leave their jobs, get new jobs. We've had people lose a dad, lose a mom. I lost my mom. We've had a divorce. We've had a reuniting. We had a get back together. We had a separation, a get back together. We had book authors. We had big life-changing events, keynote speaking, doctorates. 2 of us got our doctorates during this time. 2 more are going to get their doctorates either this year, next year. They're on their journey. And we've just lived life together. And the beauty of it is that you just drop a question in the chat and you just say, hey, does anyone have a policy on equity? Does anyone have a slide deck on AI? Does anyone know this? And so it's just a think tank of how we celebrate. We just went on our spring break. Everybody's dropping pictures about what their husbands, their family, their loved ones, and we're all just celebrating. So it is such a dynamic, unique circle that I'm just so grateful that I have been able to be a part of. And so it was so good that it couldn't stop, right? So then I created another circle. They created another circle. So it was like this nucleus that started. I have like 5, 6, probably 7 other circles. I have a Latina group. I have the sisterhood that I mentor for, that we mentor for in ASA. I've got a group of fit leaders that we do exercise together and we support each other that way. I've got a group that we support each other with technology, and it's like a sisterhood with the tech kind of folks too. So it just evolves into whatever you want to do. And so people don't have to be concerned about, well, I'm going to be on the phone a lot. I don't have that kind of time. No. We're never on the phone. We don't even do Zooms. We're just basically text messaging each other and supporting in that way. And so fast forward to today. I wish I had the book.
I know there's the book, the Sister Circle book.
I don't think I have it here. I have it at home, but I will tell you, I'm so proud of my most recent sister circle, Leticia Ordaz. I love her dearly. She became a sister way back in the pandemic too, when we started talking about brown girls with sharp edges and tender hearts. We did a big national book chat through Alas and Calza. And I invited her in because I met her at a conference and I just fell in love with how beautiful she is. She's not even a teacher, an educator. She's a news anchor in Sacramento, California, like big time movie star. And she writes books. And so she wrote a book on the Sister Circle. And I love her so much. She dedicated, like in the front, like it's a picture of me and her and other sisters that she just loves. And I'm really excited about that because now she's taking it next level. Like she's going into schools and talking to middle school kids, sisters, about how do you be a good girl? Like don't be a mean girl, be a girl that uplifts. And then there's a room full of opportunities. You will say her name. You will support her. And if somebody's talking about her, you will correct them and say, no, I need people to protect my name in rooms that I'm not in. Like
Help me adjust my crown, right?
Yeah, fix the crown when it falls off and we feel we're not worthy. No. Stop right there. You are. Wake up, get back on, and then get on this journey of life. And so that has been really, really powerful.
And so needed. Right? Measuring success. Like what metrics and indicators do you use currently to assess your effectiveness of this equity and inclusion efforts? What do you look at to say, yes, we're moving in the right direction? Or you kind of alluded to like, these are the things that are going well. These are the things we need to do better. What are you looking at to measure success?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I love data. I love it. I love both qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah. Data as a flashlight, right?
Yes, as a flashlight. Yes, as a flashlight, not a hammer.
Yep.
So for anyone who's a school leader, superintendent, we have our local and state metrics. So first and foremost, I'll get that out of the way first. We are measured by the state of California, whatever state you're in, by local and state metrics. And so those metrics will say how are you implementing the state standards? How are you doing with progressing with English learners being reclassified? How are you doing with meeting the standard when it comes to language arts and math and science? How are you doing when it comes to chronic absenteeism? Are more kids in school? What's your suspension rate? What's your expulsion rate? What is how you engage parents and all those kinds of things. So we have tools for all of that. And some of them are local tools and some of them are state deliverables that you can't really do anything about it. So they're going to, like right now we're finishing state testing. That's going to go up. It's going to be spit back. And here's your data for this year. And then we set benchmarks on how to use common frequent assessments to measure that. And so as soon as the year's over, we finished last day of school in our district is May 29th. That following week, we have a CIA week. It's Curriculum Instruction Assessment Week. And we bring together leaders from all subject matter, all levels. And they're going to be looking at the mapping of our state standards within classroom, every course that we deliver. And they're going to make sure it's still the right ones. And then are the common frequent assessments matched to what we're asking our teachers to teach, and is the lesson designed, appropriately? And we use gradual release of responsibility to make sure that we have, all the different phases and components of collaborative and independence, in there too. So that is how we do business academically and socially. We collect data all the time on that. The other one that I would say is much more intimate is the, kind of the qualitative data. When I go into schools, and this is an unusual day, I was in my office right away, because it's getting down to the wire, school's ending. But every day, like yesterday, I'm in classroom, tomorrow I'm in classrooms. Every morning, I prioritize my schedule to be in classrooms with kids and with adults. Always. So unless there's a very important meeting that we got to get in before the year's over, I'm in classrooms. And so why is that important is because I'm measuring effectiveness every single conversation. Every single conversation is measuring, am I effective as a superintendent? Are we effective as a district? Are we meeting your needs? What are we doing great? What are we doing wrong? Help me understand. So I talk to kids all the time. Like, what are your hopes and dreams? And what am I doing to match that for you? Because it's my job and it's your teacher's jobs to get you there. And if we're not, tell me what we can do better. And so those conversations are happening. Anytime I'm engaged, like last night we had last night we had quite a few things, but one of the evening meetings was an anti-racist series. So one thing that, when I first got here, we had a big problem with, racism. We have the N word being used often on campuses, just like bro and dude, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? People don't even understand the impact and the triggering of the N word and what it means. And so we had a call to action. I wasn't even finished with my 100 days. And I told the community, give me 100 days to assess everything. But if there's an emergency, come at me. Come tell me if there's an emergency.
Not on my watch, right, Zandra?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not happening on my watch.
Yeah. And so they did. Like January, February, they came to a board meeting, a whole bunch of community parents of African-American, Black descent. And they said, listen, enough's enough. This word is being used way too much in schools. We need to stop now. So I quickly put together a 5-part series. The first one was a listening session. Come one, come all. Tell me what you're experiencing so that we can now design a 5-part series to respond to your needs. And that was immediately. So February listening session, March session 1, April session 2. Actually, no, we did the listening session beginning of February. Then the end of February, we did our first part. Then March, last night we did our 3rd part in a 5-part series. Mm-hmm. And the first one was like, what is racism? One is the impacts of our words. The one is, did you know about my cultural heritage and what I've experienced? And then all the way till call to action and changing of policy at the board level. And that's the other beautiful thing. Like my board is super duper supportive. Like they're all about this work. They don't want any kid to be hurting. And so they were there. Like they're listening to the community. Last night we had a panel of students talking about, what is it? Have you ever experienced racism? And if you did, what does that feel like? Like those are the kinds of things that we're doing. And so how do we measure success? Going back to your question is listening to kids. And last night's powerful conversation was all about that. So we did that for 2 hours and then it transitioned into a governance workshop. And the board members heard kids talking. And so now our call to action was, okay, what are we going to do about this? We heard what they said. How do we shift policy and make sure that what we do as a district supports the inclusivity and the sense of belonging for all of our students? And if we heard what we heard, how do we transfer that and make sure that everyone hears that too? So what's our next level work? Yeah. And so those are kind of the conversations really are telling of a lot. And I love to be curious, about people and tell me, I only know how I've lived my life. And when like what Maya Angelou says, if we know better, we do better. And so in that sense, if I know that this is your experience as a Black woman, then how do I be better at responding and being empathetic to your needs and not judge you?
Yeah. And just jumping in to take on those hard conversations. That's the first step. We have to just acknowledge it is, without judgment or blame. Yes. How did it become this? Now let's just, recalibrate the floor of expectations. It's almost like a norm check. Like, wait a minute, for sure. How did we end up here?
Yeah. I'm going to circle back to my first question. And just to add something to that, my first question, we said, how did you become and, how did you evolve to this? Being raised by, big brothers and sisters, being the baby, being in spaces and places that maybe weren't designed for me. I became very, unafraid of conversations. I became unafraid and unapologetic, right? About the things in the conversation I have. And so going to this space of what we just mentioned about what I did, or what we organized last night with people, not a lot of leaders will do that. Not a lot of leaders will open it up. Our consultant that we hired to do this work, she says, this isn't common. People are very afraid to step on the racist button or to even say Black or to say the N word exists and where it's being used a lot. Like people are very afraid of that. And so I'm not. And I, by design, I'm not, because if I was afraid of it, then we're never going to get better. And when you craft the container and you set the premise of, we are going to do better. And when we learn a better way of doing things, we're going to change who we are as people, and we're going to be much better to make sure that people are valued. And so I even have a t-shirt that says, sin miedo. Like, sin miedo. Like, we cannot walk through life afraid of what's going to happen if we have the conversation. Because if we don't, guess what happens? Kids' lives are at stake. Kids' lives are at stake. And those little girls and boys that speak about, experiencing racism, like as a little kid, and people talking about the color of your skin or saying things about you, like that's not okay. That's not okay. And so we have to do better as leaders. We have to cultivate spaces and places where students feel that they belong there. And if they don't feel that, then what's my responsibility as a superintendent to fix that?
Yeah. And it's as simple as Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Yeah,
I'm not ready to learn anything, if I am coming to school afraid or feeling I don't belong, and I hear you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Math, I've taught math for 20 years. So math is always near and dear to my heart. Math is often the gatekeeper to kids that want to go to college. As I work with schools and districts across the United States, they've failed algebra 2 and 3 times, right? What do you currently have in place, or what is your vision to help students? It's everywhere. 25% proficiency, despite whatever we do, we can't seem to push that. And that's a needed skill. Math and science are definitely needed. What do you imagine for that? What do you imagine to take on that challenge in mathematics, especially?
Yeah. So we're doing some things really to saturate the sites that have, all of our schools have growth. Absolutely. In an area that we need to focus more on math. I think what we need to do is think about why kids aren't successful in math and do a root cause analysis. I have 3 kids, and my twin daughter, does not like math. And I said, Mija, tell me why. She goes, Mom, it's confusing. And the teacher doesn't break it down the way that I need it to be broken down. And I need to see it. I can't even experience it and understand because I get confused really quickly. She goes, I don't like it. I hate math. And I said, okay, time out. You don't hate math. What you hate is being confused. You hate being intimidated. You hate feeling less than. You hate being belittled by a concept that is confusing. And so once we do a root cause and analyze what is it about math that is disengaging our students, then we can say, okay, let's go. So if you need someone playing out a video, because that's your modality of learning, let's do it. If you learn better from a student breaking it down on a visual whiteboard on your desk, then let's do it. If you want to listen to someone because you're an auditory learner, let's do it. The concepts will always be, and as we map them, like the CIA week that I told you about, we're mapping all the mathematical concepts that build on each other. And if you lose a foundational mathematical skill, you're not going to get able to get to the next level because it's difficult, right? So if we map that out and we put in experiences for students to feel successful and find joy in math, that's half the battle. I'm never going to want to engage in something that I don't feel that I'm successful in. Never. If I can't, what do I want? I don't know. If I pogo stick, let's say I don't know how to jump on a pogo stick, and I do it the first time and somebody says, here's a stick, go jump on it. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not going to do it again. But if I see someone do it and they show me the steps to get on it and they show me how to balance and I get to see them being successful, and then they say how fun it is. Wouldn't you want to try it? Yeah, for sure. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's go. And if you fall down, it's okay because somebody's going to be able to support you and put you back on the pogo stick. For sure. I will feel so much better to try it again and again and again. And I won't disengage because I know there's scaffolds that support me. That's what we need to cultivate as an experience, no matter the content, no matter the concept. Foundationally, and going back to what you said, Maslow's, if I don't feel psychologically safe to share my answer with when the teacher calls on me, because my friends are going to laugh at me and I'm going to feel like a fool and I'm going to be intimidated and confused, and I'm not going to want to do any more of it. And I'm going to drop out. And you're absolutely right. It's a gatekeeper. It absolutely is a gatekeeper for all kids, but especially girls into engineering, computer science, and those high level scientific careers. So our response is really about how do we cultivate the genius in every kid and find joy in what we're doing. And I don't know if you've heard of this phenomenal woman called Dr. Goldie Muhammad.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we invited her. In fact, after this call, I'm going to be getting on a call to secure her contract. She's going to be our opener for our school year, this coming year. And she's all about cultivating genius and joy and math. Yes. Math is a gatekeeper, but if we don't find the genius in every kid and help them access our content in a much more meaningful way that they stay engaged and not disengage, then we're not doing our job. And math teachers are super duper smart. You know this. They are a select group of people, right? Because they went deep. Like they got a degree in math. You got a degree in math, right?
Yes, yes.
Jam. Like you love it so much and you want other people to love it too. And when your kids don't love it, you get sad.
Yes.
How do we make sure that every kid that walks through the math teacher's door loves math? Like that is a win-win on both sides. Teachers are going to be much happier about delivering their content, and our kids are too. So I think it's just reshifting the way we look at things from different angles to then bring about increase in scores.
Oh, I love that you helped your child unpack it though.
Yeah.
It's the not liking the feeling of, and what I found in teaching for so long, teaching math, because for someone that loved it and it came easy for me, it was really hard to adjust how I taught it because I wanted to teach it the way that worked for me and they weren't getting it. But I found when we gave timely, specific, and inspiring feedback, the frustration was when they would go home and practice 10 problems wrong. And they were just normally overusing some other rule. You know, how many different rules are there for fractions, improper, common denominator, right? And so they're normally just overusing some rule, but to help them have timely, specific feedback that doesn't make them feel dumb, doesn't make them feel like they're less than, just, here's where the miss was. But what I found the challenging part as a teacher of middle school math, 180, for me to correct that many, back to that, my family needed me. And so sometimes that was the issue, is how do you make sure they're practicing correctly once they leave you? Right. Yes. And so, you do problems 1 and 2, and then they leave to go home and they don't know how to do number 3, or they try and they're doing them all wrong. You know, brain fact wise, you know what that looks like to undo something that you've been practicing incorrectly.
Yeah. You know what, Danelle, you bring up a really good point. I think the way we teach is a way we learned. So if I was given by my math teacher 25 questions to do at home, because that was what homework was about back in the olden days when I was a little kid, right? Then that's what I'm going to give as a teacher, because that's all I know. But if what you made me think of right now, how about if you got 3, just 3, you did it really well, and next to each one, you justified and wrote out how you solved it and what you did mentally to conceptually understand that problem, that's enough. And then you come to school the next day and you partner up or triad up or quad up and share with a neighbor how you solved it and why. And then they figure out how to help each other as your like bell work into the lesson. So much better than the teacher grading all those problems that are wrong and going back to, our previous question, like, don't you want the gift of time back?
Yeah. Definitely. Or giving them, a flipped model where they're watching the I do part of the lesson at home, pausing, translating the language. Now at school, you're practicing so that you're getting that timely feedback. It's just my heart and passion of how do we change, especially around math, teaching and learning. I remember sitting at parent conferences where parents would say, "Oh, it's okay, mijo. I wasn't good at math either." And I'm all, don't say that. Don't say that. Right? You wouldn't say that if you didn't like reading, right? You
have to learn.
We want kids to be mathematicians and problem solvers. So we really have to think about like you said, the words we use, our word choice, and helping kids and unpack that. If you had one policy, state, federal level that we could change that would really help you move education forward, what might that be? You have a magic wand. You get one wish.
Ooh, I want facility money. I want to have every building in the district so crazy, radically crazy with innovation. I want every school building to be transformed from top to bottom, 2 stories, 3 stories, window to window. I want the students to be able to see the world. And I want them to have all the equipment at their disposal to figure out what brings them joy and how to cultivate their genius, right? All the things that Dr. Muhammad says. I would love that. And so when kids walk into those campuses, like they're like, wow, this is my jam. That's what I want.
That is beautiful.
That's awesome.
So for new superintendents out there navigating this AI future world, what would one piece of advice you might give them to help them move forward?
Yeah. Play. Go play. Play on your own, play with others, but become curious. If you become curious, you are the leader of the district. So if you model curiosity, then your team will model curiosity. And choose your words carefully. Don't say, that's going to be hard. Because if you say it's hard, then everybody else is going to think it's hard.
It's back to the math, right?
Yes. So always cultivate curiosity. Think about possibilities. Think about future lives of students that are going to be better because by design, we created those experiences. Just be super duper curious.
And what you described at your community forum, just tell them how you're using it. How are you using it on a regular basis? Thank you so much for sharing your story. Where can people follow your story and your journey as you're coming up on your 100 days and all the great work you're doing? Where can people follow to learn more about what you're doing?
Fantastic. Well, I am the proud superintendent of the Salinas Union High School District. So we are in California on the Central Coast. So you can follow our Salinas Union High School District channel on YouTube. You'll see some great videos of us in action. Some of the portrait of a graduate work is on there. My 100-day State of the Union address is on there, so they can find it there. And then for me, you can find me on the 4 major platforms. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, it's my full name, as well as LinkedIn, my full name. And then on Instagram, it's at Zan Galván. And then on Twitter or X, it's at ZJ Galván. And messaging me if anything they heard today that they're curious about and they want to know where to find it. You know, the 100-day assessment, the PDF file, the whole YouTube video, the slide deck, everything is on our website.
Thank you, Zandra. It was such a pleasure.